Hi, it's Cheryl. Join me as we get to know Amy better in this episode. We really dig in and talk to her about her love for learning and leadership and her desire to help others grow. Amy shares her instead of getting furious, get curious mantra and how this mindset changes the ways she interacts with others and ways that she works to stay open to the ideas of others. We talk more about that game we play in the car. Let's see if we can stump Amy, and her passion for coaching and the coaching model or framework that she developed to allow people to think differently and with a curious and open mindset towards living a better life. Find out why Amy flips the table on the phrase, I'm bad at anything, and how she feels about the comparison game. I can't wait for you to listen. Welcome to another episode of This Was Supposed to Be Easy.
We've had these conversations on at least 1,000 car rides and thought it might be time for other people to join us. This is Amy.
And my name is Cheryl. And today we are going to poke a little bit deeper into Amy's mind and ask her a few questions to help us get to know her better. Before we do that, I just want to say that whether it has been as a school board member, business owner, or even as she develops programs, Amy holds roles that allow her to coach, develop, consult, speak, lead groups, and so much more. In my opinion, I think she is always seeking opportunities to help develop leadership in others. And because I am the kind of person who is always looking for strengths in others and trying to identify what their signature strengths might be, I am pretty confident when I say that having a love for learning is definitely one of Amy's signature strengths. I know that learning, along with leadership, are key foundational pieces for you, Amy. And your desire is to help others learn and grow. So I'm wondering if we could just start from there and if you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. So, I have always had a love for learning and also a love for learning about other people. I really want to know a lot of the time, like, what are other people thinking when they do what they do? And I know some people use that as like a negative piece, but I don't. I use it as an opportunity to really get curious. In fact, not that long ago, I think I heard somebody say, and I've kind of adopted it to use with people all the time, instead of getting furious, get curious. So when it
I love
comes with,
that.
oh, good. Yeah, you know, it's changed my role and my way of interacting with other people a lot. And also, as I do some of the program development and I teach it to other people, it keeps people open. And so when you start kind of wondering, why someone has done the thing that they do instead of matching them in anger or frustration, it gives you a chance to be like, I'm curious why you made that choice. I'm curious where your mindset was when you had that thought. And it allows yourself to be a little more open to that. That is kind of one of the mantras I have personally lived by is being open. And so being open to new opportunities, being open to new interactions, being open to have conversations with people. And in doing so, by being open to all of those things, it's created some really kind of cool opportunities and that ability to always take every opportunity as a learning experience, or there's always something that can be learned from those opportunities.
I remember recently I had the opportunity to introduce you as the keynote speaker, actually, as the entire day speaker at a conference. And sort of to be a little funny as I was introducing you, I talked about that game we play in the car, which I think we've mentioned before here. But just in case we haven't, it's kind of a let's see if we can stump Amy. And we just throw a topic out there and see what you know. about that topic. And I was reminded of that as you talked about curiosity, right? And just always looking for opportunities to learn more about what's happening in other people's minds and things like that. That day that I introduced you, you were sharing one of your passions. I don't want to give that away, but do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So, what you're talking about is I was doing some programming that I have developed on coaching. I know in past episodes we've talked about my love of coaching, life coaching, coaching to different topics. And what I have done kind of over probably the last 10 years or so, I have taken my love of helping develop others and kind of worked it into a coaching model almost, or a way that I choose to interact with people, especially when I'm doing so in more of a professional setting. And that sometimes I really wear that hat quite tightly, but it's also something I do a lot of even when I'm hanging out with my friends and kind of setting it aside in more of a social center situation as well. But what I've learned when it comes to coaching and what I love about coaching collectively is that there's so many opportunities to grow from it. One of the things that you can kind of do when it comes to being a coach is you get to be a really good question asker. I ask questions that then allow people to think. I believe that one of my life purposes is getting people to think and think differently about things, in that they can then keep kind of that open mindset of living a better life. What I like to do and what I did on that specific day was presented kind of a framework for coaching, but it's one of those things that I do all the time. And when I'm looking for strengths in other people, I think, Cheryl, that's where you and I kind of have a common ground. I'm oftentimes looking for strengths in other people in the same way that you are, but we go about and do it in just a little bit of a different way.
Sure.
Yeah, and so when I am coaching, and what coaching looks like for me as we're kind of talking about this, is that I love to ask those questions of people of, w you know, what why do you do what you do? What thoughts are you having about things? What is kind of coming to your sense, or where might you need more help on something, or where might you need ideas to be generated? What thoughts are you having right now that you need to think more about later? And when you kind of have some of these very open-ended questions that you give to people, it gives people an aha moment or an opportunity to become more curious, to think about the answers. And that's what I do in my own life all of the time as well.
Can I let
Yeah.
me just I want to maybe repeat something that you just said because I know that there are many people who are very familiar with the kind of coaching that you're talking about. But for a lot of people who may not have ever had an experience with a coach in this way, they might think of their experience with sports coaching or something like that. Where maybe you're playing the game and there's a timeout. And I'm saying this because I just watched a football game, and you all come together and the coach is maybe giving direction, right? Like the coach is saying, do this play or cover this space in a different way or whatever. I'm trying to talk about a sport I don't even really know that much about. But what I'm hearing you say is that as a coach, you're not providing answers. You're asking questions that help people think more about why they do what they do. And you're asking questions with the intention of providing opportunities for them to think differently and to really, dare I say, understand themselves better?
Yeah. As you were talking, it reminded me about one of my favorite kind of exercises that I do with people when I'm talking about coaching. And it's something that I've done for myself. And it's a coaching motto or mantra. One of my most favorite coaching mottos, and it actually came to me on a meme. So I can't even give credit to who it was because it was just kind of a generic thing. But it was the best coach gets the ball in the goal. I think it was a soccer one, without ever stepping foot on the field. And so what
Mm.
I have people do to when they're thinking about coaching is to think about what is it that they want to do or whatever the end goal is without ever physically doing the thing. So I look at my job as a coach is to help assist the person to whatever goal it is that they have without ever physically doing that item. So if somebody wants to write a book, I don't know why I use that example a lot, but it's one that's pretty concrete. I
And
help
you
some
probably know that I wanna write a book,
Right,
so.
right, yes, and I absolutely think you should. But the goal of a coach is just, in my opinion, is to say, write the best book that you possibly can without ever typing a word on the page. I'm not gonna be the one typing the words. I'm not going to be the one giving you the words to type on the page, but alongside you, it's like I helped you write the book. I'm there, I'm cheering you on, and I am being whatever it is that you need to be or to have happen so you can be the best version of yourself to do whatever it is that you're going to do. And sometimes I think the job of a coach is just asking the questions so you can figure out what it is you want to do. And
Yeah.
so it can be something really specific like write a book, or it can be something really general, like who you want to be. How do you want to show up in life? How do you want to show up in your relationships? How do you want to show up in your marriage or your friendships? Like a lot of like what we do here on this podcast. And so I know we've talked in other episodes about that I come to things with a coaching mindset, but I think it's that piece right there of how to ask the questions to get somebody to think to be able to show up as the best version of themselves.
The other day when we had a very similar conversation, except that you were asking me about strengths, you did that exact thing for me. We were talking about the strength based mindset, and the way that you asked me questions just sort of resurfaced for me the memory that this isn't new for me. This was something I was passionate about 20 years ago. It was just one of those moments where it was my life. I had lived it, but you asked the questions that helped float memories or knowledge or passions that I had had in my heart and soul from many, many years ago that I had kind of forgot about, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. I think I remember, well, and I know we were having a conversation once about this, and I have to pull from a good friend of mine, Dr. Shereen McHenry. She uses a term called whispers of the soul. And
Mm.
what I love about that is it's these ideas that keep resurfacing in your life. And coaching is one of those for me. I remember oh gosh, I want to say it was about 10 or 15 years ago. Somebody was talking about life coaching and I thought life coaching, what's this? And I had actually at one point already worked on a master's program, a lot of issues that came along and I didn't finish said master's program, but it was that I went to school to be a therapist and to be a counselor. And I took in kind of all of that skill set and that knowledge and then just didn't do the completion. But when I heard about coaching, it was yes, this is what I had wanted to do with kind of this key piece of information that I never got to fruition, for lack of a better word. So there was probably about 10 years in between me going to school to become a counselor and then hearing about coaching. And again, when I say it, that was like 10 or 15 years ago.
Mhm.
And since then, I've done multiple coaching programs. I've, written a coaching program. I've taken in and have had now numerous jobs where I've done coaching in different capacities, that it's continually come back up in my life. And so I believe for myself it's something that I'm meant to do, because whenever something continually comes up in your life over and over again, I like to just say that, hey, it's the universe reminding us that it's something we should be doing.
I love that. It's the universe reminding us of something that we should be doing. And, I am always saying, don't should on me, but
Yes,
I
yeah.
love this positive should on, right? That sometimes our path veers off and we go in different directions. And sometimes that's perfectly fine and great, but it's okay to look at the path you're on and realize, oh, wait, there's this thing again, and it can help the branches develop so that you keep moving into that place where your soul wanted you to go, I think.
Mhm.
So, Amy, you have been talking quite a bit about coaching, which obviously makes sense since this is a big passion of yours. And I have also called you my coach in multiple areas and conversations, but it makes me wonder if you need some coaching or if you'd like some coaching, do you always need to hire someone else to be your coach?
I think that coaching is one of those areas that you can kind of go down two paths. And the easy answer to that is no, you don't have to. But let me explain it a little bit more, because I'm sure there's going to be
Okay.
people out there that are like, wait a second, you're just talking all about being an external coach. And so what does that mean? Why don't I have to? So, with that, here's kind of my meaning. A coach is going to help you do whatever it is you're going to do faster. So, to go back to that kind of sports metaphor before, you can be, let's say, a great football player, a great soccer player, know how to play the game, do all of the things without a coach. But a coach is going to help you organize your trainings better. They're going to call out your areas that you need to develop your skills on quicker. A good coach is going to help you see the end goal faster. So, when you say, do you have to kind of hire out a coach? You don't have to, but it kind of goes along with a timeline as well. How quickly do you want to come to your end goal? And if the answer is, I want to come to the end goal pretty quickly, then a coach is going to help you move along the timeline. Now, if you're somebody that's saying, "Hey, you know what? I have time. I don't have a lot of resources, I'm not going to be able to, pull into the financial part of hiring a coach and things like that." My answer is you don't have to. What I talked about starting off at the beginning of this conversation was the idea of getting curious, not furious, those types of things. So what I want somebody to do is get curious about their own life. So if you are looking to do kind of all of those end goal pieces, so you set your goals in your life and you say, like, hey, I want to, again, go back to the example, write a book, or hey, I want to be the best version of me. You don't have to hire somebody to do that for you. If you do, and a good coach is going to get you to that end goal quicker, but get curious about yourself, the kind of those initial pieces. So, what does it mean then to get curious about yourself and your actions? It means that you're doing your own internal prompts in the same way that a coach might ask you something. Now, here's the key piece, though, that is sometimes a little bit hard, and that is that you have to get really honest for yourself with the answers. That is sometimes where we have those little hiccups, and so that's okay. But it's asking yourself the harder question. So asking yourself, why did I do what I did? Why did I respond the way I responded to that situation? What feelings do I have, surrounding this item? Thinking about a time that if you want to do something, hey, I was successful when I did this, this, and this. What do I need to do to be successful again? Another key piece that I've really tried to use with people and actually with myself, And it's again something that I saw once. I'd love to give credit to the person who came up with it, but a thought process is, and I've actually taught it to my children, we don't say we're bad at something anymore. We say we're new at something. So it changes the whole opportunity and structure. So when my kids came to me and said, hey, I'm bad at math, I'll say, you're not bad at math. You haven't used your time, effort, energy, and resources to develop your math skills in the same way you developed your English skills, or you've developed your social studies or something that you enjoy more so than math. So you're new at it or newer. And I would say the same thing with when it comes to coaching. More often than not, if we're looking to develop ourselves, it's because we're newer in that space than maybe another space, or we're newer in that space than somebody we might be comparing ourselves to. And so, another part of coaching that I often tell people is you have to stop the comparison game when it comes to really reflecting in on yourself. So, if you're on something like social media, or you are looking at the person next to you, or you see somebody doing something and you want to do it too, allow yourself the opportunity to be less skilled or not an expert in that field. Get curious about what that person is doing or what the other people are doing in a way that they developed themselves. And then take that curiosity and look at, okay, what do I need to do to be able to do that too? And start asking those questions all along the way of then kind of going back, am I doing what I need to do the overall goal? And by doing all of those things, you're ultimately coaching yourself, because the best laid coach, the best coach is going to want to work themselves out of a job because they want to give you those skills and those abilities to be able to coach yourself.
Wow. As you said all of that, first of all, I have to say I love the be honest with yourself because I mean, sometimes that's the hardest thing. Be honest with our own self. And then that question of what do I need to do to be successful again? And it reminded me, actually, I was doing some grading over the weekend, and I have my students in my administration and leadership class read the book. It's an oldie, but I think a good intro for people. It's called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. And there's a piece in that book that I was just grading the responses to that talks about success and sort of that idea that we sabotage ourselves. And when he mentions that, he's talking about, when we have this goal and we take some very specific steps or follow some very specific strategies to get to that goal, often we sabotage ourselves by stopping doing those things that made us successful in the first place. And it just really helped me think about that in a whole new light as you were talking about coaching and thinking about being new at something instead of being bad at something, right? We have the curiosity and we use that curiosity, hopefully, to think about what it is that we need to do to achieve success. But then we have to remember to stay curious, to stay open, to stay consistent so that we can continue moving forwards. We can continue being successful instead of sort of sliding backwards into our old habits, if I want to put it that way.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned our old habits, because so many times we fall back into patterns and self-talk and just habits in general that don't serve a purpose for the new version of us that we're trying to become. But we have to allow ourselves some grace in that opportunity. And I think people see that backslide too often when it comes to setting goals as, well, I messed up. I didn't do it. I didn't complete it. So I guess I'm not going to do it. And they give up. I often encourage people when I am doing coaching is to change that mindset wording to say, I'm not doing it yet. Or
Mm. Mhm.
I did slide back. What can I learn from that slide back to continue to move forward? Because I think of, even if our steps are baby sized steps, to continue to making them, even if you slide backwards, you continue to make them. And to be brave enough to do that is what gets people to the end goal and is what gets them. So allow yourself the opportunity to slide, allow yourself the opportunity to resort back to some of those behaviors that you've had in the past, and then say, hey, this still isn't serving my purpose. This is why I wanted to change it, and continue to say, okay, I'm going to try again. I was new. Now I'm taking a step forward from a little bit of a different place. I'm still all that much more further forward than where I was 6 months ago, a week ago, a year ago, kind of all over the place. But, you're making steps forward. Just keep taking those little steps.
I think that's exactly what you meant when you said you have to be honest with yourself, because
Yep.
without that willingness, it's very hard to start taking those baby steps.
That self reflection is what holds up, I think, a majority of the people from ever reaching their goal. Because if you're
Sure.
able to truly be honest with yourself and truly look at all of those kind of key pieces tying it together, you're unstoppable. If you know that, yeah, there's opportunities out there and I can do things. I'm the one, when you say I'm the one that gets to determine where I'm going, it doesn't matter what life throws at you, because you know that life is always going to happen, but you get to decide your responses and you get to decide what those steps look like to continue to get you to where you want to be.
Moving along that timeline.
Yep.
Yeah. As we wrap up this episode, Amy, I'm wondering if there's any last bow on the package or summary or anything like that that you want to share as we finish up today.
Sure. So, thinking about kind of coaching and all of the key pieces that we talked about today, what I really want the listener to take away is the growth mindset and what a growth mindset can do for you. And in thinking about that growth mindset, is that something that you want to do with a coach or something that you want to do on your own? And as kind of coaches are popping up all over the place, hopefully our session today gave you, the listener, a little bit more of an awareness of what a coach is, when it might be a great opportunity to get a coach, and why coaching even exists. But I also want to let each person know that you have the ability within yourself, if you're just brave enough, to be your own coach too. And so, again, it comes back to that timeline and where you want to put your time, effort, and energy. But you are capable of doing anything as long as you are honest with yourself, open to new possibilities, and really are curious about your own life.
Amy, I love all of the things that you have shared with us. And I think it just opens a window for all of us to know you better, feel your, I don't know, I feel like I'm even more of a friend just from listening to you talk about those essential things that can help each one of us be a better version of ourselves. And just to know that that's what you want, that is one of your deepest desires and deepest passions. So thank you so much for sharing that with us today, and to just thank you for being brave and honest yourself with us today.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to let people know a little bit about what's swirling around in my brain at any given time. So thank you for allowing me that opportunity.
Love, love, love that. Thanks for tuning in to This Was Supposed to Be Easy. Remember, the best stories are the ones we live.
Join us next time as we uncover more tales and thoughts that just might change your world while we navigate those things that we didn't expect to be so hard.
Stay curious, stay connected, and keep wondering.